welcome back to another episode of The Hard Tag, where we get up close and personal with the biggest names in football. I'm your host, Jakson Bertoli, and I'm joined again today by my co-host, Brandon Patane. Brandon, how are you?
Really good. Good to be back.
That's all right. And on debut at The Hard Tag, our third co-host, it's incredible to have her back after a laid out. Kristin Sims, how are you, Kristin?
I'm very, very good. Thank you. I'm so glad to be here this week.
Okay, I love to speak to you guys about footy, but unfortunately, not the biggest names we've got in this call at the moment. Joining us on today's episode, we have a former Brownlow medalist. He's played 325 games, kicked 421 goals, four-time All-Australian, two-time best and fairest. He's a three-time premiership player. He's the greatest showman. Jakson Akermanis, how you going, mate?
G'day. Yes. No, you're actually not a former Brownlow medalist. You are always a Brownlow medalist. Like the president. You're the 33rd president or the 2001 Brownlow medalist. Yeah, you're always a Brownlow medalist. You're never a former because you never give it over. You always get it. So anyway, that's all right.
That is my
the
mistake.
Next Brownlow medalist you have on, you say Brownlow medalist, yada, yada. You'll be sweet.
That's my mistake. You are the Brownlow medalist.
You know who taught me that? You know who taught me that? Sam Newman. He said, mate, Jasmine, you are the Brownlow medalist. You're always a Brownlow medalist. Don't ever let them say former. That's wrong.
Very good. My apologies for that one. What are you up to? What are you up to nowadays, mate?
Well, I back home in Brisbane, where I grew up and where I'm from. I've sort of been away for 14 years. I had 7 years in Melbourne playing footy and media, and then I went to Albury. Albury's a shithole, but I went there and for foreign exchange and coaching, which was good. And then I finally got out of there and I came back home, and I've been in real estate now with my own business for 3.5 years. So it's a bit crazy, real estate, because you've got to deal with people that think their house is worth more than it is, and renters who don't seem to want to pay and give back keys. But it's largely been pretty good. So being back home, play a bit of golf, a bit of basketball, and just do lots of speaking around the country still, and do a little bit of radio with ABC. So it's been good. My daughters, I got 3 daughters, and one of them just turned 18. She just waved to me. She's an adult now, so she might even have a drink with me. Like, well, we watch the footy, and then you've got a 14-year-old who plays footy. She's not as good as hasn't got the talent, but she certainly enjoys it. The eldest one was a really good player, and then I've got a young 5-year-old daughter as well, Zoe, who's like the eldest one, is just super quick, and hopefully she plays footy. But it's too early yet to know.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. We're absolutely honoured to have you on today. We just heard all of your achievements. They're all incredible. But the one thing we really want to know from you is something that we're asking all our guests. What is your favourite junior sporting memory?
My favourite junior sporting memory is probably it's a real tie. Like I played in 1988. I was 11 years of age. I made the Queensland under-12 team, and we went to Darwin. We played in Darwin, and that was the very first Queensland team. It was an unbelievable team. It was so good. We won the carnival, so we drew with Victoria, and being the first ever team to win from a Queensland-based Aussie rules team was pretty cool. But out of that team, like they had 5 guys. We had 5 guys go on to the AFL. We had myself, a guy called Clark Keating, big Mr. September Crackers, who lives around the corner from my office, and I see him most days. We had a guy called Brent Green, who played on the Bears list. And we had a Clint Bizzle and Hayman Simpson, who played down in Geelong. So yeah, it was a pretty special group, but it was an unbelievable memory. And the next year, when I was 12, we won. I was main, and we won our very first flag. So, and I was best on ground that day. So that was pretty cool.
Very good. That's something we've asked the host as well. Brando last week, he told us about how he kicked a goal without even realising he kicked the goal. My very first shot at goal in AFL footy was from the top of the square, and I didn't make the distance. Kristin,
Jesus.
if we haven't heard yours yet, Kristin, would you love to fill us in on what your favourite junior memory is?
I think my favourite memory, it's probably sums me up as a person. It was my second or first game playing basketball, so under 10s or something like that. And at that point, I'd probably actually watched more football than I had basketball, so I wasn't quite up on the rules. And first thing I did when the other girl got the ball was run up and give her an old hip and shoulder.
on the basketball court.
On the basketball court, yeah.
That is good. That's
incredible.
That is a foul.
That's my
That was a
favourite.
big foul, yeah.
Yeah, that's a Unsportsmanlike foul, that is.
I thought I was going to have one of the best ones on here. I really enjoyed not making the distance, but that Kristin takes the cake. That's my favourite.
That set the
How
bar,
could
that
you,
one.
how could you not make the distance from the goal square?
I was about 6 years old, and I'd never played footy before. My best friend roped me in for a fill-in, and they just camped me up in the forward pocket, and I got a free kick. And having no idea how to kick an AFL ball from the heartland of Newcastle, I just sort of did my best, and I kicked it about as high as the point post, and it just came back down and brought rain.
Wow, kicking an Aussie rules ball is the hardest skill, and playing Aussie rules footy, if you've never played, is quite an eye opener. Like, it's the toughest field sport in the world. It's brutal. So, yeah, that's a nice introduction, and that's the thing. You get these coaches who can't teach kicking, and kicking is so important. It's really a bugbear. Like, even now, the kids come through and they don't know how to kick.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess getting into it, you went to school up in Queensland. When you were there, you were playing you played your first games of AFL in year 12, debuted against Carlton, and when they won the flag that year. How'd you manage, I guess, playing in the AFL and debuting while you're still going to school and whatnot? Can you talk us through your first game?
Well, I was actually at a co-ed rugby league school, so I copped it all the time there, called Wavell Heights. It was pretty rough, and then I actually got a scholarship to go to an all-boys rugby union school, which is called Nudgee College, and it was even more brutal because all boys, and I was in the same class as Elton Flatley. He played for Australia. He was in the Wallabies, and he was like a god. And I was the best kid in the state for years. I was, obviously on the Bears list, and then to go there and I'd take my footy around every day, and I'd cop it every day. You guys play gay AFL, you guys are gay, and you guys are pussies, yada yada. So I copped that at school, and round 4 came, and Robert Walls was our coach. He's a big guy, Robert. He's about 6'5", so he's very intimidating and very old school. And he comes up to me. It was actually Rob Dixon who tipped me off. He was our runner, and he unfortunately died in a car accident in South Africa. But he's a great fella. Anyway, he said to me, "Mate, don't just take the prize, but you're in this week." Anyway, Wolsey said, "Mate, you're going to play your first game against a guy's going all right from Carlton. His name's Scott Campriale. You're going to play on the wing." I was like, "Beauty." So I started there on Scott, and that year was an amazing year for Carlton. Carlton won the flag. I think they lost 2 games in the middle of the year to the bottom 2 teams, which is amazing. And, you're playing against the first games against Sticks Kernahan and Greg Williams, like just superstars. So I had 19 touches and I kicked my first goal. I think I played on Scott for he's 3 years older than me, so he would have been 21. He'd come out of the SANFL, super player. Runs hard forward, let me tell you. So it was tricky to play him, but he had a really bad cold. So he went off like halfway through the first quarter. So I didn't play much on him, but I ended up playing the rest of the game on Brad Pearce, who was from up here. He had the man bun before it was a man bun. So he wasn't real good either at running the other way. So I was able to get away. I think I had a mohawk as well that day. So it was a good start, and I go back to school, and every second week I'd go down to Melbourne and I'd play. And yeah, I only really missed 2 games in the middle of the year because I played back-to-back games in Perth, which is very rare. And I played 17 games that year, and we won the last 7 out of 8 games. So we ended up sneaking into the finals. We played, back then it was first Earth 8, the old McIntyre rubbish final series, and we played against Carlton, who were first, and I think we lost to them 2 weeks before by about 14 points, and then we played them in the final, lost by 13. We were the only team that got within 60 points. They flogged everyone. We were the second best team in the comp. So my first year was quite entertaining. The next, obviously, Robert Walls left that year, and we had John Norley, and we finished 3rd the following year. So we're into some good teams, and that was really my start. Being in year 12 and all boys rugby union school, I think there's like 3 of my classmates didn't even realise, like, I'm on the back page of the paper. We're doing big things. And it's funny because I copped it for so long. And when I came back to Brisbane, I went and did some reunions with the boys because I was in 2 classes because playing footy, you really can't do year 12 that quickly. So I was able to be with a 94 and 95 group. Anyway, now they send, they're fantastic. They're like total respect. They watched all my footy career. They came to the Gabba. One of the teachers there who tried to get me expelled, he went to all the grand finals. Like, it just amazing. So it just shows you what it was like, how hard it was. But then the change over the years, and of course, Aussie rules really going from 12,500 people at a game to 33,500 winning 3 premierships. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Brando was pretty happy with 96. He's a Carlton fan, so he thinks back to that one fondly.
Well, I wasn't alive,
that
but
was
it was a great year from what I know.
Super team. I mean, geez. I mean, yeah, so many stars in there. It's funny. I think David Parkin was the coach. He literally said he didn't coach that year. Let the players coach. That's how good that team was. They kept everyone in line. They ran the game plan. They knew who to target. Super team.
Yeah. And even guys from that team that when I was little, like I was born in 01, so guys like Kudo, who I was watching when I started to get old enough to remember, unbelievable, that team.
Yeah.
Kudo was, if he didn't get injured, he had a couple of years. He was the best player in the comp. Like, he was better than Carey. He was unbelievable. Playing against him, like, to go into the middle up again, I'm 5'10", 177 centimeters. To play on a guy sort of 193, 195 as a midfielder. He would get forward, kick goals, go back, stop goals, like, just a freak.
Yeah. I'll hand you off to my co-host in a second, but you've got a really good story, I believe, of someone who used to bully you in high school or getting around that area, and then you ran into him later in life. If you want to tell us about that one.
Yeah, we had this. It's funny because I went to Nudgee to get the scholarship. So I have a meeting with the brother. Back then they had brothers. They don't do it these days. They have proper teachers and principals. But so I get this scholarship, and I'm going there. You know, a couple of months before I nearly died, I had a bad accident on some rollerblades. I was in hospital for a bit, and I was off school for 3 months. I come back. I have this athletics day. Like, I was a super 400-meter runner. I win everything. And the head athletics coach said, come out. And he was here for Nudgee. He was the head athletics coach at Nudgee, but he was at Wavell, and he ended up helping me get the scholarship. The very next day, I go back to school, and I didn't play footy that year, which was a very important year because not playing footy, I probably would have got a bit gassed out. I've been playing since I was 6 or 7. So having that year off and being isolated, go back to school, go well. So I'm down this huge oval, this massive oval. It's got basketball courts at one end. You've got a 400-meter track, grass, and you've got 6 massive concrete steps next to me. And I'm kicking with a mate of mine to keep my skills up. Aussie rules ball, 20, 30, 40, 80 meters, left foot, right foot. Anyway, the toughest kid in school is walking along the top. There's actually a road, and then there's the pool. And his name was Ricky Paul. He was a New Zealand Maori, and he played rugby league, and he beat the shit out of everyone. He was a scary man. Anyway, Rick saw me, and he yells down. He said, "What you doing down there, eh, bro?" And I'm like, fuck. And you got to imagine, I'm not as big and strong as I am now. I'm probably, 70 kilos, really quick, but very light. And I think to myself, I didn't say too much. I said, nothing, mate, just kick with a friend of mine. Anyway, I could see out of the corner of my eye Rick coming down these 6 concrete steps, and I'm thinking to myself, it's been a pretty shit 3 months, nearly died, had a blood clot, nearly had a stroke, come back, go well at athletics, get a scholarship, like life is turned around. I had just amazing. And now I got this prick. And he comes over to me, Rick, and he gets about a foot from me, and he punches me as hard as he can, straight in the jaw. And of course, I go down. I did like any man would, I was squealing like an absolute pig. I'm like, oh my God, And Rick remembers, because the athletics carnival being a few days before, I had this problem which you get when you grow. You grow too quickly. It's called Oscar Slatters. You get it in your heels, and so my knee would blow up. So I would put tape around the middle of my knee and patella tendon. He remembered that, Rick. So he starts to kick the shit out of that knee, and then he just kicked the shit out of my head maybe 4 or 5 times. And people don't realize, but that's what it was like for me growing up. Like, he kicked the shit out of me because I played Aussie rules footy. Anyway, I never see Rick again. I go to Nudgee and life moves on. I end up getting the AFL 10 years later. So this is 2002. So that would be 92. So 10 years later, I buy this amazing house, old Queenslander, overlooks the city, a place called Bulimba. Magic. And I get into my house, and they got high ceilings, and I'm like, I need a new TV, need a new fridge. And so I ring my mate at Retrovision, and I said, I'll order a new TV and fridge. And I'll never forget the next day, get a knock on the door, and that same prick Rick was delivering my fridge. And I'll never forget, he's there with the big, he's got the orange trolley, he's got my stainless steel brand new refrigerator all wrapped up, and I opened the door, and now things are different. Like, I noticed something. He was the same height, but I had grown, so I was like as big as him, and much bigger and stronger. Got blonde hair, and it was funny because all I wanted to do, my mom was like, "Here's your chance. You get a chance to kick him and punch him." And I just had so many thoughts in my head. I couldn't even get one to work. And Rick looks at me, and I look at Rick, and it's this awkward 5 or 6 seconds, and then he realizes it's me, the guy he kicked the shit out of 10 years before. And Rick, cool as cucumber, Rick. He goes, "No hard feelings, bro." And I was like, "Oh, you bastard!" Like, it just completely deflated me. And I said, "Yeah, Rick. Yeah, no hard feelings, mate. Look, can you just come in the door? Just go down past the 26 rooms. On the left is the kitchen." And so I always tell people that story because they don't realize that you had a good career, but they don't realize that the shit you have to go through to get there, and all that is part of the success being, which I had this sign thanks to Rick, which was revenge. Success, massive success is the best revenge. And when Rick delivered the fridge, I never put that sign back up because I finally knew what it meant. And that was the kind of things that you had to put up with growing up in Queensland, playing Aussie rules, and not just playing it, like living it and being good at it. And we all copped it. All of us guys that ended up becoming stars and playing the AFL, they all have similar stories.
Yeah. And obviously massive success is the best revenge, and it's an understatement for you, Aker. So let's start talking about that career.
Yes.
So obviously you start at the Brisbane Bears. Very quickly a merger happens with Fitzroy Lions. What do you remember about that merger, and what your thoughts were going into it?
Well, I loved. I was doing sales and marketing, I think, by then as a degree. So I was wrapped. I'm like, this teddy bear. It's ridiculous. And now we're the Lions. Like, this is wonderful. And so we have this sadness of Fitzroy leaving. I mean, I tell people this all the time. People don't realize that Fitzroy was only, I think, $1.9 million in debt, or 1.2, something like that. And they get shafted out of the competition. And I'm still staggered by that, because I think at one stage Port Adelaide was like 9.9 million in debt. Brisbane Lions under Lepage, when he was coaching, was like 12 million in debt. Like, just ridiculous. But I was wrapped. I was really excited. So we're getting this new identity. We have better marketing. So I'm thinking, as a business side, it's going to be good. And then we get 7 players. And we had some really good players that came. We had Jared Malloy, and of course we had the captain, Boydie. Always go to call him Matty Boyd, but he's, because I play with Matty Boyd. But we play with Boydie, comes on, he's co-captain or becomes a captain. And then we've got Chris Johnson. Chris Johnson ends up becoming the only guy, unfortunately, that fortunately for us, goes on to play in a premiership. But really cool. And a lot of people think, talk to me about, was it, there was no ill feelings. Like, I don't think the players really cared. Like, as the Bears, we were getting our identity, and we still would have gone on and done great things, don't get me wrong. But to have the Lions, and when we go to Melbourne, it's like a second home. We just get lots of crowds, and it's so different going to Melbourne. The Bears are a bit like the Suns, you'd have this little sprinkling of people and bit of noise. But when you had the Lions, like some of the big games of the Lions, oh my God, they are so loud when they come out. So, there's a lot of upside, and that really did, I suppose, in the short term, in the long term, really galvanise the club. I think we were happy. There's still the sadness for the Fitzroy people, because I thought they were pretty hard done by. But for us, it was all up and up. And in the end, I sort of played for 3 clubs. I played for the Bears, the Lions, and the Bulldogs. But the Bears, obviously, was sad to leave them, but it was also awesome to have so much more, with more history and more everything, being the Lions. So it was really cool.
Yep, very good. I guess, you make your 1998. You have your first All Australian playing off half back, I think. What was that move like? Because you moved around a bit your first few years. So what was that 98 season like?
No. 98 we come last, and then at the end of 98 we got Lee Matthews. So it was not really going well. We With Wolsey, we finished 8th. We had John Norby, we finished 3rd. They actually wanted to get rid of him then, so they didn't think much of him. And then we finished 8th in 97. And that was the year, unfortunately, my mum passed away. I only had mum, so that was a really sad year. And the next year, we finished last. So when Lee
99.
Matthews came at the end of 98, it was really good. And Lee takes pretty much myself, Justin Lepage, Darryl White, and Chris Johnson, and makes us defenders. We were like mainly out forward. And that's a pretty big change. And I don't think people realise how good that was going to be, because you've got these guys that can learn defence. Defence isn't that hard. I played defence growing up anyway. And I actually played a lot of senior footy in defence, despite my finishing ability. And play down there, do the kick-ins. Chris Johnson's down there, like Darryl White, except for really Maxie Kennedy, who went back as well. He was sort of a wingman, like a big wingman, 6'4" wingman. And, you know, Lee he just changed our career. So we went back, and myself and Leper, we drew. So we shared the Murray medal, which was really cool. And then we were both in the All-Australian team. We had such a good year. I think we finished 3rd that year. Like, we go from last to 3rd. It just shows you, change of coach, you know, the team that finishes last, within 3 years, you're winning the flag. I don't really think this is that bad. And that's the beauty of what Lee brought. Lee brought those changes, but he brought an amazing couple of physios, amazing doctors, just changed the whole place. So, yeah, 99. And that was, I remember the week before we were about to go and start, we have this, it was like the day before, we have this corporate opening or corporate sort of start to the year where all our big sponsors come. Anyway, a couple of days before, I dyed my hair blonde, and I was watching a game in the preseason. I see Adam Huskis. I'm like, that's it. I've got to dye my hair. Got to stand out more, you know. And there was 4 redheads in my team at that stage. You got Michael Weiss, superstar, Justin Lepage, and Ben Robbins, and that always got me wrong with Ben Robbins. Don't know why, because Ben's skinny and can't kick real well. But anyway, so I dyed my hair blonde. So I'm sick of this, you know. They're calling me the wrong name. Anyway, I'm shitting myself because Lee Matthews is, I'm like, just so worried about what he's going to say, you know, because I want to impress the coach. I've already been on the outer in the preseason. I trained really well and I got myself ready, and I was in the round 1 squad. Anyway, I see Lee over there, and he starts walking my way. I'm like, fucking Jesus, this is not good. Lee sort of saunters and he sort of waddles down and comes over. He stands next to me, and I'll never forget it. He goes, Aker, I think your hair looks terrific. Looks just like mine. And you got to remember, Lee used to dye his hair. He was going grey and he dyed his hair. It looked terrible. And now he's just like full grey, he's going bald. And I thought, fuck it. I was just like, whoo, yeah, that was a relief. But that's the thing about Lee. He knew what to say to me at the right time. And he did that pretty much the whole time until the end. We just had those little things. I didn't get a lot out of Lee. Like when I played well, I got a pat on the back. But those little things he would say would just calm me down and make me feel just a little bit more love for him. And that's why we play for great coaches the way we do. And that was it.
Yeah, it's a good when you see teams nowadays getting that new coach and that bit of a boost. You play in those 2 prelims, obviously. What were those prelims like after having being the Bears playing those prelims against, I forget who it was in 99 and then in 2000 as well.
99 we played against North Melbourne. That was a good prelim. 2000
another flag winner.
They were the flag winner. They had a good year. They beat Essendon. Essendon really, they had that unfortunate loss. They were the best team that year. So lucky. I know it's lucky for North Melbourne, but in the end, Essendon just couldn't beat Carlton, which was staggering. And it was a remarkable game. And then 2000, I think we finished 5th. So we didn't quite get there. But in my career, out of 16 years, I played in 9 prelims. And prelims are you guide that you're in a good team. Not necessarily grand final teams. Obviously, we won a few and we played in 4 grand finals. But in a 16-year career that, 70% you're playing in prelims. I was in some good teams. And you need a bit of luck.
Yeah, definitely. Then you've got 2001, the start of it all. You win the Brownlow 2001. You have having a phenomenal season. Can you tell us about your season in 2001?
2001 was a really funny year because I played really well. Like I carry, people think I'm joking. I carried that midfield. It was good midfield for the first half of the year. And we were 4-4, I think, round 8. We go down and we play Carlton at Princess Park, and we get really badly beaten. And I did my hammy, I think, in the second quarter, but not bad. In fact, I played the next week, played pretty well. And Lee's filthy, like, there was no honour in the loss. It was really disappointing. We go back home and play one of the greatest games you'll ever see. No one ever talks about this game, but I was in that game. We lose by 5 points to Adelaide, one of the best games. Me and Darren Jarman are kicking goals, left foot, right foot, and he kicks some phenomenal goals that game. Anyway, Lee comes in and said, that's an honourable loss. The next week is round 10, so I think we're 5 losses and 4 wins. We are like a 9th spot, 8th spot, 9th spot. So things aren't going that great. We play Essendon, who at that stage had lost 1 game the year before in 2000. They lost to the Flooding Bulldogs and win the flag. Easy, dominated. And then the next year they roll in. They won 9 games straight. We're going to play the unbeatable. Anyway, Lee does something I'd never seen. He does a few things. He puts everyone's positions on the board, which is normal, and then he puts how many AFL games each player's played on. I'm looking at it, and the Essendon team and our team is nearly identical. And he's like, you guys have got just as much experience and just as much talent. And he puts that scene on The Predator where Arnold Schwarzenegger, looks over his right shoulder and he says, if it bleeds, we can kill it. And Lee finished the meeting. He said, tomorrow night, boys, we're going to fucking see if they can bleed. And I was like, Like we went in bad form, but, you're playing a team that no one can beat. Anyway, we beat them by 20 points. And it was a bit of a shock win. I think even Essendon were like, oh, we just didn't play that good. And I'll never forget that. I was like, you got to give the opposition credit. The next week we go and play a place we could never win, the West Coast Eagles in Perth, mainly because they're on drugs. But anyway, we beat them. And we go on and win the next 16 games straight by an average of 60 points. We fucking flog everyone. We played Richmond in a prelim final. We flogged them by 70 points. And it was a really strange year because Ansett collapsed. He just had 9-11. We didn't even know how we're getting down the grand final. And so I'd set up a lot of the Brownlow win. So coming into that Brownlow week early in the year, I think the last round was round 21. I got 3 votes against Geelong in Geelong. And I ended up becoming a Brownlow medalist on the Monday by 2 votes against Adelaide's Andrew McLeod. He's a mate of mine. He's a fantastic player. He won all the media awards, but people didn't see all the great games because it still didn't show them all. And I'd played some good footy early on. I was leading halfway. So on the Monday, become a Brownlow medalist, and it was really cool. But the best thing was we actually were playing a grand final. So the next morning, I go on the training, the boys, lots of high fives, lots of hugs, but we're like, hey, we're going to go play grand final. We go down there, and I'll never forget, it was hot. It was like 31, which is really unusual for late September in Melbourne. It can be just a shithole. But it was hot, which suited us. And Essendon were really, they probably had 3 or 4, including James Hird and a few others. So they were injured, adductors and a few things. And we were able to, we had Brad Scott do some tagging on James Hird. And, we were down by 11 points at half time. So we really should have been in front by a bit. In the third quarter, we just started kicking all the goals. And we win our first grand final, 108-82. And it was, so in 5 days, I become Brownlow medalist. We win the flag. And then I'm like, this is too much. This is awesome. Let's have a party. And then my wife just walked in the room. And then like 2 weeks later, me and my wife, Megan, we get married on the 12th of October. So within 3 weeks, I'm like, Brownlow medalist, premiership player, get married. And it was just the most ridiculous period. And then we went to America for our honeymoon, which was interesting because September 11 just happened. So it was pretty crazy. But it was the team and the tactics and everything else. We just tweaked it a little bit, just enough. And man, everyone knew our game plan. No one could stop it. It was bloody brilliant.
So obviously you were pretty much on top of the world at that point. Talk us through, how you were feeling at the time and what you thought was going to happen in the next season.
Well, obviously, Lee came in. He said, we're going to start pre-season. I don't want to see us going backwards. We need to go forward. So just before Christmas, he says, everything I've seen nothing but people that want to improve. That's a good sign. And then the next year was our best year-to-year season. Probably forgetting that era, Port Adelaide were unbelievable. They were always minor premiers pretty much. Oh, fantastic. But they never had, and I say this all the time, they never had another gear. They would never have beaten us in 2004 if it wasn't for the AFL and how they fucked us over with the draw and the prelim final. So we the next year we just dominate the season. We're like up near the top. I think we finished second or third, but Port Adelaide just beat us. Anyway, for minor premier, we go to the finals and we dominate. We get in there and we got to play Collingwood. Now, Collingwood were like us. We finished last in 98. They finished last in 99. They get a great coach in Mick Malthouse and win a grand final against them. So you can see in a few years, like within 3 years, both those sides are getting great coaches going to the top. Now, it was a wet day, which I was excited about. The only problem was early in the game, I didn't realise at the time. I knew it was bad, but I didn't know how bad. But I actually ripped my right adductor half off the bone. So within like 90 seconds of the game, I had 2 shots on goal already. I love the wet. You ever see me playing the wet? I dominate the wet. You could, any day it's wet, pretty much always got 3 Brownlow votes. I just love the wet. And we get into the game and we're missing, but they were fantastic. Like their pressure and everything that you didn't expect, because it was a wet day, because they had a lot of bigger bodies, it suited them, but we had big bodies too. So it suited us, but it was a titanic battle. And in the end, late in the game, I get a crumb, I kick a goal. It's the winning goal. We win by 9 points. And it goes down as one of the great grand finals. Rocker's goal's not allowed. It's got drama, it's got everything. But we win a game by not much that we probably would have if things were a little bit better and I was a bit healthier, but a lot more. But it was a fantastic game. And we have nothing but respect for that Collingwood team. They were so good on that day. We did their tackling numbers, and normally that's how one would. Their tackling numbers were 90% held tackles, which is staggering. Like you don't really get that in many games, but they did. And that was the start of an unbelievable rivalry. They were bloody good that day.
Yeah, that was a game that I actually really remember. But I would love to touch on what was it about the wet that just you liked playing in so much, because normally it's the exact opposite for most players.
Yeah, I think the wet does a couple of things. It obviously the ball's on the ground more, but see, when I was a kid here in Brisbane in the winter, it wouldn't rain that much, but when it did, I was the only kid outside kicking goals. So I'd go down. There wasn't many Aussie rules grounds around me. There's lots of Aussie rules grounds, but there would always be goalposts for rugby league and rugby union field. So I would go down there, I'd have 1 or 2 balls, and I would just be out there by myself, picking up ground balls, ducking around, getting skidding balls, kicking goals. I'd do that for 45 minutes an hour. I loved it. And so that, as I progressed on, obviously, I'm glad I didn't grow up in Melbourne, because I probably wouldn't have gone outside, but it was warm. It was good. It's never cool. And so, and that practice always kept me in good stead. So when it rained, not only does the skillful players, they really stand out. Like the rain is such a leveler. Like it gets the guys that are skillful in the dry can easily fall away in the wet, because there's a lot more to a wet ball than there is. You've got to have good technique. Like the ball's going to spin. It's not going to sort of do what it does in the dry. You've got to have a good straight kick, and you've got to have great hands. You've got to be really sure on the ground. And because I've got really strong legs, not big legs, so I can stay over the ball and around the ball. And I was always practicing, make sure I was a one-touch player. So when it was wet, Andrew McLeod, myself, like you could see everyone fumbling, and then we just pick it up, and that's just the way I practiced. He practiced, and so the wet for us, he'd play up and down, I'd play here, and man, I loved it. So that's the real key. The ball's on the ground. Lots of practice as a kid, lots of practice as an adult, but it's putting the hours in is the only real way to explain it. But I think it suits my body type more than most, because of my strength is in my legs and my hips. My upper body's strong, but in the wet, that's the key. The guy with the little spaghetti legs, man, they struggle big time. They don't have the power, the strength, and that's the beauty.
And speaking of as well, in that grand final, we all remember you were the one that kicked the sealer on your left boot. Can you talk us through that goal and that moment and how that felt?
Yeah, it was funny because most of the day, the early shots on goal, the balls were skidding off the forwards' hands because it was quite wet. And in that last quarter, it was over the other side, and the lips are lethal because the coaches are actually over that side. Anyway, I've run to the back. Lynchy went for a contest, and all of a sudden he's sort of grabbing and it's coming to the front. Anyway, and I saw that contest, and I was like, right, the game's changed. The forwards now I've got far better purchase on the ball. They got used to the conditions. Anyway, Lee, you can hear in lethal. He brings down to Craig Starcevich, who's the AFLW captain and Collingwood player and Brisbane player, and he said, "Go and tell Aker to get to the front." Like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm already thinking I've got to get to the front. So anyway, Craig starts running out. He's about 6'4", Craig, so he's pretty easy to spot. You wear those bright, bloody, stupid shirts. Anyway, he gets about 30 meters from me, and I just say to Stars, I say, yeah, get to the front. Like, I didn't even have to hear it. I already knew. I mean, we're professionals. But the next contest was late in the quarter. I think they used to have in Channel 10, they had the 5-minute warning, that kind of shit. So I remember seeing the replay, but Brad Scott, there's a bit of a sort of Fossey nearly gets it. Leon Davis nearly gets it. Brad picks it up and just boots it in. And I'm sort of in between that contest, and I'm running towards Lynchy and Wakeland, who'd been in a wrestle all day. And of course, as it was, it comes to the front, and I'll never forget Lynchy. Lynchy had the front position, and he says these words, and they're like the clearest words I've ever heard. He goes, "Acker, you're clear." And so Licura was on me, but he got pushed into the contest, and he kind of overcommitted. And I, despite having one leg, I knew I had enough time, and I knew where the goals were. The kicker left would snap, and I'll pick it up, and I kick it. I actually kick it nearly too far. It goes around the goalpost, and of course the umpire with the big mustache, he goes all the way over there. So I'm sort of going, "That's a goal," because it's a goal. But I'm thinking maybe he thinks it's a point because they just stuffed up rockers, which everyone thought was a goal. But no, he came and it was a goal, and I was like, I didn't really need to kick it that far. But the beauty of being the best two-sided kick that ever played, but to actually have a left foot that worked, it came in handy. And that goes back to my very first coach who actually taught me to kick both feet. And that was when I was 7. So it takes all of those years, and you just never know when you're going to need it. But I needed it that day, and that was pretty special. I didn't know how long there was to go, but I thought we could defend 9 points. If Rocker Goal had gone through, it would have been pretty hectic couple of minutes because they could have got a couple of points. But in the end, we would have won by 3 points instead of 9 points, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah, and obviously you gave me flashbacks talking about the 5-minute warning. I'd love for that to come back. But all good things coming through, Zaka. And arguably your best grand final performance was 2003. Should have probably won a Norm Smith. Were you a bit dirty that Simon Black got it instead of you?
Yeah, I still did it. I see Blackie. Blackie's one of my great mates. I see him all the time. We're going to his house next week. He lives around the corner as well. So him and Crackers live in the same suburb around the corner. But they married Catherine, who actually mum and dad were best friends and born 7 days apart, both called Catherine. Anyway, so we go into that game, but people forget that game. Lee Matthews, and he's never denied this. I got told this by a journo. I didn't know this, but before the game, because I'd sort of said in the pre-game, in my interviews, I said, because Nigel Lappin had broken his ribs, and he got hit by Sean Hart against an amazing win in Sydney. The only time they've lost a final out there at Homebush or whatever they call these days, ANZ Stadium. And people are like, "Oh yeah, how's Nigel's ribs?" And that's just such an idiot. I said, "Oh yeah, his ribs are no good. They're broken, but he'll be right. He'll play." Lee, he fucking wanted to sack me then and there. But he was so filthy. He didn't want to talk to me. He was so dirty. And he apparently said to Graham Allen, who was our footy manager, he said, "After this game, you trade him out. I do not want him anywhere near this club." That's how filthy he was.
Wow.
Then I go out and kick fucking 5 goals too. And, only bloke ever to kick 5 goals too in a grand final. and not even really get in the top 3 for voting. I'm like, what fucking planet are these blokes on? Anyway, Jared Healy has apologised to me twice for not voting enough. But back then, Blackie's got a record though. He's got like 37 or 38 or 39 in the grand final, which is hard to ignore. So you look at a stat sheet and you probably think, yeah, he kicks a goal, but those touches are good. They're, little touches, and they're good, but 5 goals. So it was a great day. I brought a lot of pressure on myself for saying that stuff about Nigel. And Nigel, this is how good a fellow Nigel is. He said, never mention again. I had no problem with it. I remember before the game, I walk past where the bloody the medical room is, and I can see in there, and I see Nigel Lappin's back, and the doctors have marked. It looks like permanent marker, but it's like a black marker every single rib in his spine on both sides. And I think it was the left side, and joked about how many he put in there, but he probably had 14 shots of anaesthetic. But the problem was, this is the thing about Lee, is he had the guy who was an emergency, who was Aaron Shattuck, do a test on him the day before at our last training session, and in that test, Aaron Shattuck punctures his lung, and so Nigel had a punctured lung, but we didn't know him, so they had to give him more anaesthetic than he probably deserved. So I play well, I kick 5. Lee says after the game, fucking don't worry about it, he's got a job for life. And poor Nigel, because he's got the punctured lung, he's got to drive all the way back to Brisbane because he can't get on a plane with a punctured lung. So he gets back there. I think he was back there 24 hours later before Mad Monday. So it was a crazy game. We thought Collingwood would be a bit better. They were a bit younger the next year, but I think they lost Rocker in the prelim. And I talked to a lot of Collingwood fans because they always want to tell me they said after we lost Rocker, we knew we were fucked.
Yeah. Before we move on to the 04 grand final, because I think you'll give us a fair bit about that, I want to ask you, because you obviously played in the Brisbane 3-peat, but we've seen a lot of good teams, Hawthorn 3-peat, Geelong 1-3. Do you think that the Lions are the greatest team of the modern era since 2000?
Yeah, there's a rule about being the original. Like, I see a lot of guys want to beat my record. They beat my games, or they try and beat my goals, or they try and beat 3 premierships. But the big difference is Brisbane has to travel every second week. You never, Geelong, they travel up the road. They've got a fortress, and then they're only going to travel up the road. I mean, it'd be like us having the Gabba and then just driving just down to the Gold Coast to play our next, most of our games. Like, I'm not saying they were great teams. They are fantastic teams. And you can only win what's ahead of you. You can only beat your era. They were the best in their teams for that particular few years. They were fantastic teams. And I don't ever take anything away from them. But I remember not so much the Geelong team I think we'd have there, and the Hawthorn team wouldn't have got close. But Craig McRae was assistant coach at Richmond. This is the day before. So I speak to him the day before. This is Richmond go on to beat Geelong up here at the Gabba when we had the COVID grand final up here. And he said, I was just looking at our team. He goes, these blokes wouldn't have got within fucking 10 goals of us. Not a chance. We would smash them across every line. And I laughed at that. And then the next night they go and win. And so it's really difficult to say that era, this era, this. But it's funny because Lee Matthews reckons that his Hawthorn team would beat our team. And, Lee's like, you guys are good. But, I reckon my team was better. And so, but in the modern era, in the AFL era, forgetting the VFL era, I mean, Hawthorn had the whole area. They had the best pool of talent. So, you get nearly a state team, but they were a phenomenal side too. But yeah, I always say, your originals, like you look at Jordan's team, you win 3, have a break, win another 3. You can't argue about 3, having to travel every second week. You're up against everything. You got to play night games, day games, interstate teams. You tell me another team interstate that's done that. Yeah, Adelaide, who were the original Kings, they won the back-to-back one, 97, 98, and then we came along and did better. And I think they're more the story, because the great teams of Melbourne, like Collingwood, travel 4 times a year. Like, give us a spell. We travel half the season.
That's something you're seeing now, perhaps why Brisbane now aren't getting there in the end is because they're struggling to travel. Because at the Gabba, they're brilliant. So I guess
They're
there
hard to
definitely
beat
is something in that. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They obviously this year they had a pretty poor third quarter against Port, and then get a good team down there, Marvel Stadium. But that was the brilliance of that team. We could win on the shitty surface at Marvel. Back then they had sand, and like it was a joke. Our biggest place to play in Concord was actually the MCG. We didn't win as much as you think at the MCG, but we got there. We started to beat North Melbourne, or our bogey team. We started beating them. Then all of a sudden, that's when the three-peat comes. So it's a special team. I'm biased, so my opinion has. You've always got to take that into consideration. But I talk to people all over the country, and no one ever really argues that much, even if they're Geelong fans or Richmond fans or Hawthorn fans. So like, we wouldn't get near you guys. We know that. Don't worry about it.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I think one point as well is traveling for a team like you back then was also a lot harder than what it is now. Like the money that goes into recovery and stuff, you guys wouldn't have had what the players today have. So that probably makes it even bigger deal than what the guys now have got.
Yeah, we actually, it's funny. We were really lucky. So we had our guy that used to fly us for Qantas was a guy called Don Lehman. He lived around the corner from me. His boss was a Lions fan, and his boss was a Lions fan. And what that meant was we could fly anywhere in the country at 20,000 feet. It doesn't sound like much, but that luck and that brilliance of us flying at a lower partial pressure is literally taking half the effects of anyone else flying. So every other team, it's funny, would fly at 38,000 feet, which does a lot of things. If you never, when you go flying, the next day, all of a sudden you feel like you're pissing all day. Like you hold on to the water, like it has an effect on your body. And it's good for us because we hold the water. We get on the scales for the game. We're like, I don't know where this 2 kilos came from, but anyway, but then you don't get as injured. So that travel at that altitude was just like brilliant. But in that era, I think our guys really set the bar. They were unbelievable with the recovery. We would fly down with with tights and a few other things. I think we would take our own pillows. We would in the aircon. We'd get one of those big tubs of water and we put in the room so you wouldn't get so dehydrated. It wasn't too bad. I think the guys today benefit from that. I don't reckon they're much better than that era, but I remember Mick Malthouse found out that we were flying at 20,000 feet. I think that was the fine. He tried to get his flights at 20,000 feet, and over the distance between Brisbane and Melbourne, it's like $18,000 more in fuel. Like it's ridiculous. But because we had Don and his boss, we got away with it. But Mick, they said, Mick, you got no fucking chance, man. That's not happening. So we had the luck and they didn't, but we needed it. We traveled all the time, so it was pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely. You've had your 3 flags, absolutely incredible period of dominance. You almost win a 4th. Everyone knows you play that prelim in Melbourne. You get some injuries that you may not have gotten at the Gabba, and then the grand final in 2004. Can you talk us through that couple week period in 2004 with the prelim and then the travel back and forth?
Yeah, it's totally fucked. I mean, the reason it's so fucked is because Andrew Demetriou, who's never ever and would never ever come out, and there's a reason I hate him. It's not just that he's an arrogant prick who's a great deal maker. It wasn't that he was great when he was on the AFLPA, so good that the AFL said we need this guy. But the problem I've got is that he just fucking lied, So what happened was, we get into a prelim final, sort of Port Adelaide. We're the top 2 teams. We've had a good year. We're coming to our Lee says this is our chance to create history. I'll never forget, a couple of things happened. Bomber Thompson comes out, Geelong coach, and says, I don't think it's good for the competition to have 4 wins. We have other coaches saying that. I'm like, fuck you, man, because a couple of years later, Bombers winning 3. I don't see anyone fucking saying it's no good for the competition when Geelong win 3. So this happens. So there's a little bit of this sort of talk and there's a bit of noise from these other fucking coaches having a sook. We're going for history. Port Adelaide play an unbelievable prelim final, one of the great prelim finals. I think they win by a couple of points against Port Adelaide. There's two things that happened. They made us play the prelim final in Melbourne against Geelong, which Andrew Demetrio, the fucking lion prick, he says, well, we've got an agreement. We've got to have one game on, every week at the MCG. That's our agreement. The problem is, the stupid bastard, is that the boss at the time of the MCC and the MCG would have said, and he said it publicly, that we would have just given another game over. It wasn't that fucker never rang us. Like, he never even rang to ask. He just said, no, the MCC won't change the rules. That's the way it is. So he's fucking lying to manipulate that particular game. But the other problem was, Port Adelaide play on the Friday night and we play on the Saturday night, 24 hours apart, which is fucking criminal, because you want your teams to play close to each other. They get the break. They get a fair chance the next week. We go back to Brisbane. We win against Geelong in a great game, and I honestly think Geelong should have won that game. We get a couple of injuries. Which I know we wouldn't have got all three, but we get three bad injuries. Jonathan Brown breaks his leg, cracks one of the bones. I think he's in his tibia, so we can numb that so we can play. And we've got Alistair Lynch does his quad, and Craig McRae does his hamstring. All things won't happen. They won't happen in Brisbane. Don't have to travel. Don't have to sit down. We get the physios. We're laughing. We play that game. We come back. Now you got to remember, Adelaide is less than an hour away. We're 2 hours away. We fly back 2 hours. They're already 24 hours. By the time we get back on Sunday, Port Adelaide are nearly 2 days in front recovery-wise. So what happens in the grand final is exactly what should have happened. We're in front at halftime. They're choking like shit. We know we're going to beat them. We're good enough to beat them. Halftime comes, third quarter comes, all the fatigue and the lack of recovery, and they just start to overrun us. They beat us just because they had more energy. They weren't a better team, and if we played on a Saturday afternoon in Brisbane, completely different game. We would have been on them in the third quarter, and we would have ran away in the fourth quarter. It still burns in my soul, burns in Lee's soul, burns in fucking every player's soul. That fucking fat prick, Andrew Demetrio, I'll never ever say a good word about that prick, because he manipulated the system because he had a fucking ego. And if he didn't, and he was a fair and just man, which he's not, he would have fucking done the right thing. And I'll never apologise for that. And if he's got a fucking problem, he's got my number, he can ring me, and I'll tell him the same. I'll tell him to get fucked, because he ruined a chance of history, all because he it didn't suit him, didn't suit the competition. Fucking too bad.
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone would have loved to see the Lions win 4 in a row. I think it was every neutral fan is what they wanted to see. We moved to 2005. You personally have a pretty strong season in 2005. There's that miraculous game against Geelong where you kicked the 2 goals inside a minute from the exact same spot. Now, it looks like in both of those that you run towards the boundary to make it harder for yourself. I'm sure that's not the case, but can you talk us through just that minute? Like, you finished that game with 35 touches and 5 goals.
Oh yeah, I had the game of games. I actually had 12 tackles that game. Like, most people go on about the offense. Like, usually when you have 35 touches, kick 5 goals, you don't really do much tackling. But I had everything happen that day. It was the best game I ever played. It's the best game that I've ever scored. I scored 5 out of 5 from Lee, which at that stage never happened. And even Dermy Breton gave me 10 out of 10. So, and those 2 goals, I didn't really need to come off. I came off halfway through the third, late in the quarter. Lee puts me back on. It's wet, fucking dominating, and goes forward and sort of I fumble the ball, and Shannon Burns has tagged me that day, and I kick a good goal. Go back to the middle. Vossi's on the bench, so me and Blackie got to do the middle. Anyway, go back in the middle. Again, we win, go forward. I think Daniel Bradshaw drops the ball. Ash McGrath gets it, handballs it over. Simon Black. I handball Simon Black. Simon's left footer. He can kick good right, but he's sort of facing away from goal. He's getting heavily tagged by Cameron Ling. And the first goal was good, and it went through. But the second goal, by the time that happened, I've got Cameron Ling, who's sort of 190, and I've been hit by Cameron. It fucking hurts. He's really bony. Anyway, he starts running towards me. So I just accelerate. And now I'm running towards the boundary. And, of course, I'm going to have a shot on goal. But it's actually more to avoid Cameron Ling, because I really don't want to get one of those elbows from him. I've got a few before, and they take weeks to get over. So I just bolt, I'm balanced, and I ping it, and it goes straight through. And I suppose because of the scenario, because it's the second one and it goes through, I've been watching a bit of English soccer, and I was like, man, let's just hand this up. This is fantastic. And I'm as shocked as anyone. Not that it's gone through. I'm not shocked it's gone through, but just that I've just kicked another goal from nearly the same spot. And I don't know how many people were there. It was a rainy day, not the best conditions. Still warm, but I kicked these goals, and it was just the best. So I just hammed it up, and even my teammates were shaking their head. And I was so happy. So it was a really good game. I actually played the next week and kicked 5 against Melbourne. I had 26 touches, and my opponent had 8. So I had a good couple of weeks.
Yeah, absolutely.
I won the best and fairest, so that was good. I had a good year.
Yeah, absolutely, you did. You said it before, like you love the wet. It was as a Sydney fan, I love 2005, but that game against Geelong is probably one of my favourite, as a neutral fan, games to go back and watch. You were just untouchable that day. It was incredible.
It was so good. I still think about it. There's never sometimes in a question they're like, "Oh, what's the best game you ever played?" I don't even have to think about it. It's one of those games. It was better than as good as I've played. Great to play well on the big stage, kick 5, but when you kick 5 and you do everything else good, not only you get mountain of the ball, and because I was mainly a kicker of the ball, 35 touches is like these blokes today getting 45. It was a lot of possession. But then I tackled, and I tackled, and I tackled. So had the energy, we won, but it wasn't our best year. We're losing. I think we lost over 1,000 games of experience after 2004. So we were on the slide. It was hard to watch.
Yeah. Talking about the wet, when you say that's one of your favorite games, is that one of the games you woke up, saw it was wet, and you felt like before the game that was your day?
Every game before the wet, unless I got in. I played a lot of games. I think there was 7 or 8 games in a row over a number of years, and I got 3 Brownlow votes in every one of them. So it didn't really matter. I remember I played against Fremantle in 2001. I got another. It was wet. Got 3 votes. Like it was, yeah. Any time it's wet, and that was a day game, so it was warm, and I was in heaven. And Geelong at the time were a little bit off. I think they had like 6 blokes with head colds, so we were dominating them. So I was able to sort of get away, and they were tagging me, but I don't think they were tagging me early. I was dominating. Then they tried to tag me. It didn't really matter. I was always going to play well.
Yeah.
Was that celebration you did in that game where you went like this? Was that planned, or was that just something in the moment where you?
Yeah, that's what I was saying. So when I was watching the English Premier League, they carry on after the goals. You don't really see it too much in other sports. So, and that was I would like. My favourite English Premier League moment was actually Eric Cantona. Have you ever see Eric Cantona? He played for Manchester United. He was number 7. Anyway, he kicks this unbelievable goal. And I remember watching a highlight that week. And if you see the goal, it's so good. Eric Cantona, he's sort of just on the edge of the penalty box. He kicks this ridiculous goal, gets past the keeper. And it's an away game. And the crowd they were like, in shock. It was like, you could hear the hum of disbelief. And Eric Cantona just turns around, and he didn't even celebrate. He was like, oh my God, did I just do that? Like it was an out of body experience. So I see this, and then that week I kicked that goal, and I sort of was like at the start in disbelief, but I was excited too. And then it just came. And I was we got a bit carried away, I think, but it was pretty cool celebration.
Iconic.
Yeah, talk about celebrations. The man of handstands. Can you tell us about that? How it started? Just the vibe of the handstand, and then obviously when you get to the Bulldogs, it doesn't happen anymore. Can you talk us through that one?
Yeah. So 99, first year, we play against Geelong. I actually watched the week before, and Ronnie Burns is a mate of mine, Ronnie. He kicks a goal late in the game down to Gary Ablett Senior, and he runs around the boundary. He's doing aeroplanes, and then he does a cartwheel. And I'm back in Brisbane thinking, what an idiot. And back then, because I was playing the back line, I always had to play on the fastest, most dangerous forward. And they're nearly always, Indigenous players, nearly always, which I love. Jeff Farmer and all those boys, because I was faster than him. You see, they didn't like that. Anyway, so I go down and I see Ronnie, and Ronnie's like, "Hey, brother, how you going?" I'm like, "Yeah, Ronnie." And he goes, "Mate, we got a problem." This is what he says before the game. He goes, "We've got a problem." I said, "What's that, Ronnie?" He goes, "At the end of this game, I'm going to have my spot in this team, but I'm not so sure about you because after today." And I'm like, "All right, Ronnie, no worries." So anyway, after the game, I had like 30 touches. I kicked a couple goals from the back pocket, fucking dominant. And I say, "Thanks, Ronnie, we win. Thanks, Ronnie, for the game." And he goes, "You're deadly, bruss. Fuck off." And so we go around to thank the crowd and Leper, Justin Lepage, we get down to like the western end, and he goes, he's always jamming me up, Leper. He goes, "We do one of those cartwheel things." So I do a cartwheel. Anyway, the next week we play at home again, which is a bit rare to have 2 games at home. But anyway, play at home, it's hot. It's bloody, I sweat. I was so fatigued after the game. I tell people this all the time. I'm like, sweating like a gypsy with a mortgage. And I'm just like, 3 Brownlow votes trying to thank the crowd. And we go down the western end there. And Leper goes, "Do one of those cartwheel things again." And I was so fatigued. I remember I go to do a stupid cartwheel. I just get stuck. And I do a handstand. And I was like, that was actually easier than the cartwheel. And I'm thinking, all right, I'm going to do a handstand. When we win at home, I'll do a handstand. And so as the years go on, we win at home, I do a handstand. And then I was obviously very strong. So I'm not the best at handstand. So my daughters tell me to do gymnastics, but I was strong enough to kiss the ground. So I kind of just evolved. And I remember the handstand, like my teammates, to their credit, they all accepted it in Brisbane. They were fantastic. They're not all always happy with it, but they accept it. And they wait for me and they do that. That's the respect, at least, that they would give me to do the handstand because the crowd loved it. And I get mail if I didn't go to certain sections. You haven't been down the south end or the east end. So anyway, and they were all over it. I remember this game we're playing, and again, this is one of Lee's little zingers. He comes up to me before the game. It was an important game. He comes up to me. This is all he says. This is in the warm up. He just leans into me and he says, "Zaka, I want to see a handstand today." It's not in my head. I think I had 33 touches and kicked 4 or 5 goals. I had played well. And after the game, I see him, I give him a wink, and I said, "I think that was worth that handstand." He said, "Good game, it was good." So they're the things. And Lee and the boys and the crowd, it was fucking magic. Then I go to the Bulldogs. And the fucking Bulldogs, my teammates, the fucking jealous little fuckers. They didn't like the attention. They thought it was too individual. This is outside the team ethos. You can't be an individual. I'm like, listen here, you fucking idiots. Individuals make up teams. You need to be a good individual. This works for me. And it was really a couple of players. But in the end, I said, which was the whole problem with the Bulldogs. I said, look, it doesn't fucking matter. Like doing a handstand, me being me, I'm here. I'm the best. I train the best out of all you, and I play, and on the field, you trust me, right? So that's all that counts. But anyway, they had a problem with it. So I said, all right, fine. I'll give up the handstand because, I'm a team player. So weeks go on, and this is like 2010. And then they're like, "We want you to give up the media. We want you to give up this and that." And I fucking just said, "Are you guys for real?" I said, "I'm the only fucking one in this group giving up anything for you pricks. You're not giving me anything. I've just got to conform to this fucking stupid shit. Last time I looked, I've actually done something, won something. You guys are just fucking hoping. Now you want to fucking mold me into this." And that was it. That was the end of it. And that was really the end of me. I got the leadership offside because they didn't want that shit going on. And I basically just told them to go fuck themselves because it just meant nothing. It was just a nothing thing. But they wanted to control me that much. I was 33. Done everything in footy, and that's the way it was at the end. So that's the difference between the culture at Brisbane, that's why we're successful, and the culture at fucking Western Bulldogs and their stupid leading teams and all the horse shit had to put up with there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Before we get too much into Bulldogs, there's one more story I want to go through from your days at Brisbane. You come out in 2006. Obviously, you mentioned tagging before. You come up against Geelong, and they run 3 players through you just constantly throughout the day. And then you obviously have that in that column about it. Can you tell us about the game, the column, and how that then affected your time at Brisbane and your relationship with Lee?
Oh yeah, that was a bad idea. So we played Geelong round 1, and this is when rotations start. Lee's not catching up. 2006. Lee's not really coaching that well. He's not adjusting, and he's giving me the shits anyway. So I'm playing half forward, and one guy goes off after about 5-7 minutes. Next guy comes on, and like I'm going to chase these blokes around, and I'm gassed out. I'm fucking running, and on defense they're playing well. Anyway, we get beaten, and I do a column every week up in the Courier Mail, and I've been doing it for a few years, and so I said, I think we've got to do maybe something on our game plan. We're not really adjusting. And there's a few things in life that I've had to learn the hard way. Number one out of that is do not ever publicly make negative comments to a person of the stature of Lee Matthews, because as much as I thought he would take it well, he did not take it well. He is he's egotistical and protective of his fucking game plan, and you'd believe. So I say in the column, and my ghostwriter was a new ghostwriter, but he'd been around the scenes for a while, Andrew Hamilton. And Hamo goes, "Are you sure you want to say that?" I'm like, yeah, let it take it, fine. That was a bad idea. I think we run the column. He's incensed. He's fucking incensed. I could tell straight away. And we had a really good relationship. We'd always have to go back and forth because he'd always be upset with me about something I would say or write, and then I'd go and explain it to him, and he'd see the method in my madness, and it'd be all cool. And we'd be like that for years and got on fine. But this is the one time I overstepped the mark, and I think I lasted till like July. I played the last game against North Melbourne, kicked 3 goals, won us the game, and then I said I got something and got leaked out. It was me. I think I did it, and he just said. He said to Vossi, mate, he's just shitting in your face, and that's the end of it. And it did not take that long, but we'd agreed that I would leave at the end of the year, but we didn't even last that long. So I think 20th of July, that was it. So we both tried. We both failed as well. We both made big mistakes, but yeah, criticising a coach of Lee Stanton, that was a dumb idea.
Yeah, you speak about the standards that Lee set. I have a little list here of players that you played with at Brisbane that are currently head coaches, assistant coaches. It is unbelievable. Let me just quickly rattle them off. So we've got Vossi at Carlton, Fly at Collingwood, Brad at Essendon, Chris Scott at Geelong. Then you've got Luke Power, who's currently at the Blues, Nigel Lappin, Justin Lepich, Blake Caracella as well. Firstly, how proud are you of these guys? And also, could you see at the time that they had the qualities to be able to pursue that and be successful?
Yeah, there's even more guys. I think.
There probably is.
Chris Johnson's done a lot of things with the Australian team, and yeah, there's a lot of them. So, and some like myself, I've coached at Ovens and Murray and a few other things. I mean, I got a degree in coaching. I was really disappointed that I never got a chance to coach in the AFL. And my team, those teammates of mine, probably. I mean, Craig's senior coach now. If I was still coaching, I might be a chance, but I don't want to coach anymore. But you think one of them will give me a go, but no. But it's probably just indicative, maybe I don't quite fit into the yes men that they need. I fucking couldn't be that guy anyway. So I just think it's wonderful. I think the most impressive part, Chris has done really well. I'm glad he's won a flag. He's been a coach for a long time, won in his first year, which is a great group. Nigel, but Chris is nothing without Nigel. Like Nigel he's the relationship man. Like, if Chris is a coach that is awesome because of Nigel, and the other great talent they've got and the guys they bring in. But Vossi should never have coached so early at the senior level, and he did a far long apprenticeship than he should have, because he made that decision. If he had gone to West Coast and done his 3 or 4 years, he would have been coaching anywhere. He's always going to be a good coach, but he hurt himself by getting in too early, like James Hird did, like Nathan Buckley did. But then Brad was probably the guy out of all the group you'd say, yeah, he's going to coach. He should coach. Like, he's got a really good footy brain. You could tell in meetings what he'd say. He's really logical, and he's a numbers man. So it all makes sense. Lukey Power, the same. But the one that's probably impressed me the most would have to be Craig McRae, because he's a very funny guy, very well liked. Runs Mad Mondays, runs our footy trips. So he's got this crazy, awesome drinking party kind of organising type. Being a teacher, he's got a thinker, and he's a Mozzie. And I went down, and he was part of I think 7 premierships in the AFL, VFL. So very successful. So I go down to Richmond, I'm coaching the Ovens and Murray. I take 3 of my really good players down there. We train with them. I see him talk to the group, and I'm like, man, the Craig is so much more advanced than I think the others are, because he's got this beautiful gift where he can give you feedback. It's funny, but it means something, and it's not going to hurt your feelings. That's a real art. And he sort of say things like, Heck, I don't know where you're at. You're a super player. You're just missing tackles, and you're not kicking the goals. Like, you're so much better than that. Like, he's so like that. So you know where you stand with him, and he's got a brilliant sort of attitude towards relationships and stuff. So I think, and incredibly popular always where he went. And when he rang me, he said, I said, you got to go for the Collingwood job. And he said, I don't think I'm big enough name. I said, I don't think it matters anymore. I think you're a super coach. You've done fucking everything. You've done assistant coach, forward coach, VFL coach, development coach. Mate, go for it. Now, in the end, his talent shone through in the interviews, but no one, and I mean no one, would have thought that he is like a walk-up star. But what people don't realise, and this is I'll tell you, Mark Rashudo, it's a true story, 2 years before, said, Craig, you got the Adelaide job. I think they ended up giving it to Nix, but he said, mate, it's yours. It's over, done. Tell me what you need. And Fly, it wasn't that Fly wasn't ready. It was just that he has some issues in his private life. So his kids are in Melbourne. He's got exes, and it's complicated. He can't really just move. And so he said, I can't do it, Roo. And Roo was devastated. And he'd be even more devastated now because he can see the coach that Fly is. So, yeah, of all the guys, and Leper is a brilliant mind for footy. He's a complete idiot with, as a senior coach, because he's very intense, and he's got a streak where he can turn you off. So he learnt the hard way, and he said, I don't want to be a senior coach. I've learnt my lesson. I thought I did, but he's a far better assistant coach, and he's a brilliant defensive coach, brilliant offensive coach. So will we see any more out of that era? I doubt it. I think the guys that are in there will stay in there. The rest of them, Lukey Power's not really that kind of guy. He's happy just to be in the background. So, but I'll make a prediction that Craig McRae will be at Collingwood for 20 years and win 4 or 5 flags. Like, he's just that good. He'll win more than Chris and Brad and Vossi, and they're good coaches. And that's what I think of that.
Well, that's just broken my heart, knowing that Craig McRae could have been coaching the Crows. So thanks. I'm going to go have a little bit of a cry about that, I think.
Yeah, you ask Mark Rashudo, he'll tell you it was all done. He didn't want to interview anyone. He said, Fly, it's yours.
Wow. How things could have been.
Yep. Yeah, they're the sliding door moments of life. And if they could have got his kids over there, he's had a younger daughter at that stage as well.
Yep.
From his second partner, so it just didn't work. It's such a shame for Adelaide.
Yes. Yep. But hey, like, we're all enjoying watching what he's doing anyway. So I think we're all glad to just see him as a coach and what he's doing at that club. It's amazing.
Super job. Yeah, and I'm about to go and watch his side play. So, he'll play against his old team. There's one thing you can guarantee is when you play against your old team, you know them inside out. He will exploit every weakness he can, and they're super to watch. I don't think the best teams can run with them at the moment. Their foot skills are too good.
Yep. So I think now we're getting on to that era of the Bulldogs. How did you land at the Bulldogs? What was some of the thought process there, and what was it like at first?
It was really easy. I got really lucky. So I had 2 offers. One was from Essendon, which was for 2 years at 400,000. Now I'm 30 years of age, so I want to play for 3 more years at least. The Bulldogs have a 3-year contract. They're coming for $450,000 a year, $50,000 more and an extra year. And the other problem with Essendon was I was worried they're going to sack Kevin Sheedy, which they did the following year. The Bulldogs had just won their first final. They're about to make all these, which they've done now, of course, with their redevelopment. Sold me on the future. Really good list. But the reason I went to the Bulldogs more than anything that no one knows is that my assistant coach is a guy called Darren Creswell, and he is best mates with Rodney Eade. And they talk all the time, like daily, sometimes every second day, all the time. Really close. And if it wasn't for Darren Creswell being assistant coach of Brisbane, saying to Rodney, mate, he's a superstar. Don't worry about that shit. It's all bullshit. He trains like no one else. He'll give you everything. If you want to get a big name to your club, because the Bulldogs had no fucking big names going to their club, they developed them all in-house, then this is your guy. And so it's Darren Creswell that got me there, because it had to be the Bulldogs that had chased me and give me a deal that was good enough. I could have gone to Geelong, but it would have been on rubbish money. I would have won more flags, but you never know. But we did play in 3 prelim finals. And in 2009, we were fucking so close. We had a goal touch that they don't have the systems they do now. That Jared Harbrow touched Revolt's goal. We would have won that game. We should have won that game. It would have been a grand final. So we're very close, very close. And, you know, another 3 prelim finals. So you're in a good team.
Yeah, 100%. Obviously, you had another big recruit at the Bulldogs in 2010 in the name of Barry Hall. What do you recall about him coming to the club and sort of how that all panned out?
Well, at first it's great. I mean, Barry and I are 10 days apart, so you wouldn't know it looking at us because he looks about 58. But he's born on the 10th of February, and I'm on the 24th of February. So, you know, oh, no, he's the 14th, so I'm the 24th. And, you know, they said the Bulldogs, we need a big recruit, so we get Barry. And what people forget is that the year before I was leading goal kicker for the second time in my career as a small forward, one of the better small forwards that could kick and be a good goal kicker. Barry Hall completely fucked my career, because what happened was that last year they stopped coming to the smaller forwards, myself, Brad Johnson, you know, some really good goal kickers. Welsh we had as well. Like, it's super spread. Barry actually fucked up our forward line more than having him in that. We win the preseason comp. Barry's best on ground. And the boys just kick it to him. He's got 4 bloody blokes on him. I'm like, fucking stop kicking it to him. And plus, we can kick goals. You know we can kick goals. Kick fucking 50 goals. Like, give us a spell. So Barry might have been good in some people's eyes, but in my eyes and my career there, it was bad. It was really bad. So, and I wasn't able to push up. We had so many good midfielders. I wasn't having the time in the midfield where I could kick it to Barry, and then I wouldn't care. But my job was to kick goals, and Barry's coming to the club basically fucked that.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that one of your greatest disappointments about, your career was, I guess, when you sat down and got to watch players like Jared Ruffhead get that farewell game when you didn't get that farewell game. Can you tell us about that and that sort of disappointment?
Yeah, when I got sacked from the Bulldogs, like, it was pretty fucked anyway. But it was actually the players. Now, I've always thought and was told that it was more, you know, Robert Murphy and Ben Hudson, and that might be the case in some small way. But the guy that you never saw, that had his hands off it, that looked like he wasn't involved, it turns out it was the guy who was doing all the work, which is the CEO at the time, or I think it's CEO Campbell Rose. Campbell Rose was trying to get rid of me a couple of years before because he didn't like all the media attention, like, dumb. So he would put in blokes like David Smorgan, who was the president at the time. All of a sudden, you know, you got Peter Gordon, you know, doing all the fucking paperwork in the background, you know. But the thing that stood out there is Brad Johnson, who's a great fella. I had no problems with Brad. The players just wouldn't support me. But the one guy that should have supported me, which was Rodney, he just didn't have enough power. He lost all his power. The review got rid of all his power. And so you got Campbell Rose running around looking like nothing's going on, orchestrating shit, like, unbelievable. So Simon Garlick and you had Chris Grant, these guys, they just turned on me. They turned into fuckwits, just fuckwits. And so they call me in. David Smorgan's there. So I'm like, I say, what the fuck's he doing here? Like, he should be here. I know it's bad. They say, we're going to terminate your career. And I'm just like, you know, that's fine, but fuck. You know, you got blokes, if you're going to get rid of them, say, look, this is it. This is it. I'm going to play one more game. Because at this stage, I'm out of the team. I'm in the reserves. I'm coming back from injury. I'm getting my mojo back. Just say, this is one game. That's it. You want to come watch, you come watch. You can thank you and fucking be done with it. And that's the selfishness and the fucking just shit that I had to put up with. And I complained about it a lot. I complained to the AFL, I complained to the media. And the good thing about that, as much as I never got it, the guys that do deserve it get it. They get their last game. They're struggling. They're not in the best 22, but you got to respect these guys. You're not going to play in finals. Give them a fucking game. Let the fans who just watched them for 15, 16 years come and say thank you. And they do that much better now. And so in some ways, I feel like it was bad for me, but it's been good now for everyone that deserves the respect they deserve. All you get is a fucking lap around the MCG on grand final day, which is fine. But, you know, my fans could have come from, and I had fans across the country, across the world. They could have come and watched one game. And that always fucking pisses me off. And that those boys just wouldn't give me that. And that just shows you how fucked it was in the end. It was really bad.
Yeah, absolutely. I know all of us would have loved to see you get that farewell game. That wraps up the main portion of what we're doing. That's all of our real questions for you. That was an incredible.
Let's get to the quizzes. I'm just here for the quizzes.
That's it. We'll get to our last few ones. So first, I'll throw it to Brando. We've got two listener questions there. Questions we told our listeners that you're going to be coming on. Got a few questions in from people what they want to know about you, Brando. If you want to cover those ones.
Yep. So we asked Twitter for listener questions. If you're not following already, and you're watching at @HardTagPod on Twitter, on Instagram, and we're on TikTok now. So please get on that.
Before they ban it.
Yeah.
Well, they might. They might.
Only if you're a politician. We're not politicians.
Oh yeah, politicians. Well, they're lying pricks anyway. Don't worry about it.
Well, as long as it's around, we're on it. So everyone follow. So first up, our first question from Liam O'Brien. He asks, in your opinion, Acker, what was the missing piece in the Western Bulldogs prelim sides?
Not really that much. I don't think we really had a weakness. I think we had a super midfield. We had a potent forward line, very hard to match up on, really solid defence. I don't know. I don't even think we need a missing piece like a Barry or anyone like that. We probably could have had, actually thinking about it, we just needed a better ruckman. I didn't think our ruckman were good enough. I love Wim Winston, but he wasn't good enough. Peter Street wasn't good enough. But we didn't have. Yeah, our ruckman was the biggest issue. They needed a ruckman that could. Yeah, we had a Dean Cox. We would have won all three of them. Like, he was super. He could get around the ground, kick goals. Like, we needed a better ruckman. Yeah, that's what we missed. Ruckman.
You needed our man from last week, Brad Ottens.
That's what I was about to say. Get Brad Ottens in there.
Man, Brad Ottens would have been great. Goes forward, kicks goals, taps it down your throat, silver service all day. Give me Brad Ottens any day. Any
Star.
day.
Absolute star. And we're only going to do two tonight. The last question we've got is from Giacomo Bruno, and he asks, which player from the three-peat era do you feel doesn't get the plaudits or are underappreciated for their role?
Sean Hart. Sean Hart, every day of the week.
Great answer.
North Smith medalist, but super player. Played like I tell you how good Sean Hart was. He's amazingly fit. He was fitter than Blackie. Like, he could run faster, and he was bigger and stronger. If you want to see the only guy, this is a superstar of the game, in Robert Harvey. Go and have a look at Sean Hart on Robert Harvey. Tout him up. 8, 10 touches. Mate, you never, ever... And Robert Harvey was an amazing runner. Big, strong, huge, powerful legs. Couldn't be stopped. Sean Hart stopped him. That's how good Sean Hart was.
Very good. Absolutely love to hear that. Now, one other bit. Whenever we get a new journalist into the Inner Sanctum, we have an intro. We do a nice little important intro that we ask every single person that comes in. So we've taken a bit of that element and we've thrown that into this podcast. So we've taken some questions from our intro and some other questions that we've wanted to ask every guest. So I'll throw that to Kristin if you want to run through our sort of quick fire questions. So in a sentence or less for the answers.
All right, let's get started. So Acker, what is your favorite TV show?
My favorite TV show. I don't watch a lot of TV, but at the moment, I'm really on Netflix at the moment. There's this show. I think I'm just having a blank. Ted Lasso. I've been watching Ted Lasso. Fucking hilarious. So at the moment, it's Ted Lasso. But my all-time favorite shows were always like Seinfeld and Friends. And before that, like the best show I ever watched was like Police Squad, Police Academy. Not Police Academy. Naked Gun. Like Leslie Nielsen was my favorite ever. He's the funniest guy ever. I can watch. I watch him on Instagram all day. He's the funny man. So yeah, that would be my favorite show.
Okay, all right. And following into that, favorite movie of all time?
My favorite movie of all time is Shawshank Redemption. This is a really good movie. But the sort of the series I've watched the most is actually The Last Dance. I think I watched it like 12 times. So yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, Michael Jordan's my hero, but yeah, best movie, absolutely Shawshank Redemption.
Very good.
Unbelievable.
Good shout out. Yep. Now, this one I'm really keen to get an answer for. End of the night, we head down to the karaoke bar. What is your go-to song?
I can sing only one song really well. It's actually Three Doors Down, Kryptonite.
Love it.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, it's the only song I can sing. I can sing some Elvis because my mum used to love Elvis. So I used to sing, and I've got a lower voice by Elvis. But of course, if you ever hear Elvis sing, some of the notes he gets, oh man, I can't get there. But Three Doors Down, Kryptonite, man, I'd nail that shit.
Love it.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a very good
Well,
one.
we go to Japan. We'll get to go there. We've been there like 6 times. Anyway, my wife and I would go over there, go in the karaoke, and we order umeshu, Japanese palm wine. She always does the duets. Like, just annoys the shit out of me. I'm like, I can't do duets. Like, I'm going to be Elton John. But anyway.
So do you get the Grease mega mix going when you're over there then?
Yeah, she'll try and put that shit on. But, my voice isn't as high as, John Travolta's. Like, I can only do the deeper voices. But yeah, that's the song I can do. If I can find it, I can do it.
I love it.
Yep.
I can't, like, even rap's too hard. Like, I could do like tequila, like I could sing tequila, know the words.
This next one is my favorite question in the quiz.
Yes. What are your thoughts on Brando's favorite player, Tom de Koning?
Is he the one that plays for
Carlton?
Geelong?
Young Carlton.
Carlton
Ruckman.
Oh yeah, so his brother plays for Geelong.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, he looks like a talent. He's tall. He takes good marks. His brother's going well. He's got a big career ahead of him. Hopefully he fills out, and hopefully he can keep doing the intercept marking. He's going to take some big targets down. So yeah, I think he's going well. He's only young. It's hard when you're young and because it takes the bigger guys because they're a bit dopier. It takes them a bit longer to get good, but when they get good, hopefully you either go from being the same and you don't really get that good, or you really accelerate and become Minto. So he's got the potential. Yeah, he's tough. He's tough. They're not all that tough. He's tough.
Yep.
Speaking of tough, who was your hardest ever opponent that you played on?
Oh, the hardest opponent I actually played against, like the hardest opponents I had were actually at training. So I would play on Vossi, and then I'd have a quarter there, and I'd change forward, then I'd be on one of the Scott brothers. Like that was fun. And I'd have to try and bash them and run them around, which wasn't easy. And then I remember one preseason, in the last quarter, I had to go and play on Blackie, and he just ran and ran and ran. So it was harder in training, but I sort of never really had a lot of trouble with many taggers. I eventually got on top of them all the time. Like they might have a good game here and there, but a good game is like I get 15 touches. They do nothing, but I don't get 20, 25. But the hardest player I ended up having to play on, I'd always beat him, and then towards the end of his career, he got really dirty, and that was Stephen Baker, and he was fucking mad. He would stand behind you and just like punch the back of your arm and elbow. Like he never did that before. And he was quick, not overly talented with his skills or anything. So I'd dominate him most games and just get 20, 25 and kick a few goals. But at his end of his career, he was an absolute prick to play on. I found it really hard to play on him.
Fair enough. This last question, the last quick fire question, is something that either makes you or breaks you when you first enter the Inner Sanctum. So, Jason Akermanis, what is your favorite flavor of shapes?
Oh, I just had some barbecue shapes before.
Yes. Come on.
Oh,
and they got a little bit of chili on them. So, you lick your fingers, and for some reason, it's just enough. It actually tastes good. Normally you wouldn't have chili. You'd be
Yep.
trying to get some milk down. You'd be just crying and shit. But they're perfect. The shapes,
Incredible.
people have got that spot on. The
Thank
barbecue
God.
shapes.
Unbelievable.
I love that. That's the faction we're a part of, and the barbecue is objectively the best. We love that answer.
Yeah.
They're addictive.
Yeah.
They are seriously addictive. They're like
They are.
Very
me and cream buns. Like I can't go near a cream bun shop. I just love cream buns. I cannot ignore a cream bun. But it's not the cream buns you think. It's like the ones at Wendy's. They're beautiful. They've got the pink icing, and then they've got the cream in the middle with the jam.
So good.
Yeah.
Yep.
They're the best. Can't go now.
Amazing.
Can't go now.
So good. So Aker, it's time for the main event. Now I know you've been looking forward to this, and I know Jacko's looking forward to this as well. So
I'm nervous here.
It's the only reason I've come on, really. Let's be honest. That's why.
it's time for the hard tag quiz, ladies and gentlemen. So last week I got towed up by Brad Otten, so I'm backing Jacko in to give you a go this week. So
We're down
it
0-1.
is. We are down 0-1. So I'm going to give you 3 questions. Aker, you'll go first. Second question, Jacko will go first, and so on. And it's best of 3, and the winner gets the point.
Rightio.
So, Aker, you won the Brownlow in 2001. Great year. That year you averaged 21.25 disposals. Your highest total that year was 31 on 2 occasions. For a point, can you name one of the 2 teams you claimed that total against?
It'd be Adelaide.
Okay.
Always play well
Jacko?
against Adelaide.
Jacko, have you got an answer?
Okay. 2001 Brisbane. I'm gonna just take a wild swing. I'm gonna say Collingwood.
Okay. No one got either of the teams, so we're going to go back around.
Back around. Bugger.
Aker, go again.
Yeah. You say 31?
31 twice.
To
get one of the 2.
Fremantle.
Jacko?
I'm going to stay in Melbourne, and I'm going to say the Kangaroos.
First point goes to Jason Akermanis.
That was early in the season.
Fremantle in round 5, and then Hawthorn in round 13 as well.
Damn it.
Yeah, I got 3 Brownlow votes that game against Fremantle. Kicking an unbelievable goal late. It's a real high scoring game. It's hot. Anyway, we win that game. It was a good game.
Do you remember anything from that Hawthorn game?
Always played well against Hawthorn. Round 13. Was it up at the Gabba?
I'm not sure.
Oh,
but
yeah,
you had a good one.
I'd say it'd be at the Gabba. Yeah, I don't remember a lot of that game. No.
Yeah. So 1-0 Aker. Going into the second question. Jacko, you'll go first this time.
I'm under pressure here. I'm feeling stressed.
To the nearest total,
Okay.
how many goals did Jason Akermanis kick in his first season at the Brisbane Bears?
In his first season at the Brisbane Bears. I know he kicked 1 in his first.
Mm-hmm.
How many did you kick, Aker? I need. Oh God. You only played. So you've ended up playing 17 games first year. To the nearest 10, was it?
To the nearest total, whoever gets closest.
Oh, okay. I'm going to put you at almost a goal a game. I'm going to give you 15.
All right, Aker.
Yeah, I think I kicked an average a goal a game. I think it was like 18 or 19, or 17 or 16. But I'll go with just a little bit more, like 18.
Okay. So Aker says 18. Jacko, you said
15.
It is 1-1. The
Yeah,
total was 12
16?
goals. It was 12 goals.
Oh, fucking 12. Yeah.
Oh my
No,
God.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
my
didn't kick a lot
Lord.
that year, did I?
No, but
So we have a tiebreaker on our hands.
Certainly made up for it at the end of your career.
We have a tiebreaker. Here we go.
Oh, here we go.
So we know Aker as the excitement machine that he was in front of goal. However, he wasn't a stranger to a good tackling performance either. So Aker, you go first. What is the highest amount of tackles that you had in a single game in your career? And you did it 3 times.
12.
Oh,
Okay. Jacko?
He said he had 12 in that game.
But see,
that's
on our stats. I know we did that, but that might be champion data. So.
Oh, okay. This is interesting.
Yeah.
Whose stats are we going to go off here? Okay.
We'll go off what I've got here. Do you want to reshoot based off champion data? I'm stiffing Jacko here, but
it would be it'd be like 9 or 10. Like it'd be 10 because I know that we have tackles that are counted that they don't really count.
Okay.
So you're going 9 or 10?
I would say 9.
Okay.
9.
Jacko?
And is this just whoever's closest?
Yeah, we'll go whoever's closest again.
I'm going to take 10 to see if he went over it all. I'm taking it. I'm going to lock in 10.
It'd probably be like 8.
Oh,
6 to 8.
Acker, if you had gone 10, Jacko would have nailed it, but it is 9. So Jason Akermanis takes out the win.
Oh,
On a big technicality, might I add. But
That game that I played, I got 12 tackles, so I remember that. But then, of course, that's our tackles. I don't
you
think
had
it was
9 listed 3 times. So Geelong in 2005, Adelaide in 02, and then Adelaide again in 07. So,
I'm so
could have been
disappointed.
more, but
I'm so disappointed.
I would be disappointed, Jacko.
Sorry about the
Okay.
dogs. My
Okay,
stupid dogs.
What I will do
Hey.
just quickly, because I had a tiebreaker question just in case it went pear-shaped, so I'm just going to ask it anyway. Acker gets the win, but we'll do it for fun. And Jacko, you can go first on this one.
Okay.
What team did Jason Akermanis kick his last career goal against in 2010?
Oh, his last career goal. It was 2010. I'm going to say there was some kind of poetic justice in there and say it was Brisbane.
Acker?
Well, it would have been early July. We've been playing at home. It's pretty big Melbourne team, I'd say. It'd probably be Melbourne or someone.
Very close. Add a north to the front of that, and you're right.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
North Melbourne. Yeah, actually played my last game in Brisbane, North Melbourne, and then I kicked my last goal against North Melbourne.
Okay.
4 years
that
apart.
Oh, wow. So that is where the hosts are down 2-0 in the quiz. That brings an end to another episode of the Hard Tag. This has gone a bit longer than I think we expected, but that was an incredible chat. I don't think we could cut it any shorter.
Amazing.
I just firstly want to thank you, Jason, for joining us on the Hard Tag today.
Good job, Jacko. Good job, guys. I mean, it's never easy, like doing it live, but you guys working well. That's really good. I've done lots of these, and it's always easier to talk about yourself. But I like the quizzes at the end. That's always different. Most of them don't do that.
No worries. Thank you so much, mate.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brandon, for joining me.
Thank you. Had a blast.
And Kristen.
Thank you.
Kristen.
Glad to join you.
Perfect.
Good luck to Adelaide. Hopefully they don't get the wooden spoon.
Oh, I don't hold out much hope.
Oh,
they could add Craig McRae. Just remember that. They could add Craig McRae.
I'm not going to sleep now.
I want to thank everyone for listening to another episode of The Hard Tag. Follow us on the socials at The Hard Tag, at Hard Tag Pod on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. This is going up on the Inner Sanctum's YouTube channel and also available on Spotify. We'll be back again next week for another episode. Hope to see you then. Thank you.